Senators, councillors, ladies and gentlemen and friends, I'm delighted to welcome you all here to Fowne Street this evening, and number 10 Fowne Street to be exact, where 40 years ago this year the doors to the Hirschfeld Centre opened, the most significant gay community centre of its time. Today, with the blessing of the Dublin City Council Commemorative Naming Committee, we are unveiling a plaque to commemorate such an important cultural and historic gay space and indeed movement. Named after Dr. Magnus Hirschfeld, who was born in 1868 and died in 1935, he was a German physician and sexologist, educated primarily in Germany, and he was an outspoken advocate for sexual minorities. We'll hear a little bit more about him later. The Hirschfeld Centre opening here was incredibly significant in creating a haven for many struggling, isolated and rejected because of their sexuality at the time. We are delighted to have many people who were involved in the centre in its early days here today, but I am first pleased to welcome the Lord Mayor of Dublin, Councillor Paul McAuliffe, to speak and will be helping to unveil the plaque. Lord Mayor.
Many thanks, Declan, and it's great to see so many people here. I should acknowledge my council colleagues, Councillor Kieran Perry and Councillor Mannix Flynn, who are with us today, Senator Norris, so many great people, and you're very welcome here to the Hirschfeld Centre. And I'm delighted as Lord Mayor of Dublin to help unveil this plaque commemorating an incredibly important building in the life of the city, a community space that's part of the fabric of Dublin. CIE had intended that this site would be the site of a large modern bus station. However, the Hirschfeld Centre in many ways impacted the direction of Temple Bar. On St. Patrick's Day in 1979, when it opened, it was to alter and change the course of Temple Bar really forever, and to set on course a movement towards gay and civil rights, which ripples really right up until the modern day. The Hirschfeld Centre grew from a number of small gay social spaces, but was led by a core group of people who had the ambition, the courage, the strength and the vision, firstly to be visible and to fight for gay rights at a very difficult and challenging time. The late 70s and 80s was more than challenging. It was a frightening time, a repressive time for anyone who had a different sexual identity. It was still, of course, a criminal offence, and so the importance of people like Edmund and David, the importance of their work, what happened here in this space, their courage to create a haven, I want to highly commend, not on behalf of me, but on behalf of their city. Thank you on behalf of Dublin. This centre also had a major effect on the sudden and unexpected appearance of a cultural quarter here in Dublin that earned comparisons with that of the Left Bank. Though CIE nominally was committed to a planned redevelopment, it was by the end of the late 80s, the bus station was thankfully abandoned, and my predecessor as Lord Mayor, Councillor Sean Kenny, along with the then Taoiseach Charles Haughey, unveiled a plaque here to commemorate the streets of Temple Bar and the improvement scheme that would follow. But it's the legacy to gay women, to gay men and gay women, to civil rights that the Hirschfeld Centre will most be remembered. That presence, that courage, that visibility, all of which led right up into that great marriage equality referendum of 2014, and perhaps the fight that is yet to come in the north part of this island. Dublin City Council has already developed many great projects aiming to ensure social inclusion and integration, and we want to continue doing that with the Hirschfield Centre and many other community organisations right around the city. One City, One People was a campaign that we launched in 2010, and it saw Dublin stating that we would not accept either racism or discrimination in our city. And we must ensure that such campaigns, projects, seminars, exhibitions, discussions, formal events all continue to fight discrimination and address the problems at the root. The populist right are rising across Europe, and we need to rise to match their fear. And so I move on to Dublin Pride. Dublin Pride is a shining example of one of those projects. Now, with a parade as large as St. Patrick's Day, our city, over the next 2 weeks, will celebrate sexual identity and diversity, and we'll fly the flag in the 50th year of the Stonewall riots. And on my home, the home of the Mansion House, we will again fly the Pride flag, as it will be flown on public buildings all across the city, something which I imagine the founders of the Hirschfield Centre could never have imagined in 1979. At the first event here in Pride 2019, the unveiling symbolises a vital importance of honouring and remembering the history and the level of work that went into fighting for this centre in achieving gay rights and civil rights. Dublin Pride reminds us that these rights must be fought for, and we stand beside those in countries and states who do not have those rights, to protect and assist those in our own country who feel isolated and alone because of their sexual identity. As I say, in fact, we don't even have to leave this island to find gay people who are being discriminated on the grounds of their sexuality. We're not without our challenge. Discrimination is a real issue here in our city. We need to make sure that we tackle that, both as individuals and as a city. And we have to do it as cities across Europe. On Monday, I'll attend the European Union Capital of Cities Summit of Mayors, and that message of inclusion and tolerance has to be at the heart of our European projects. The results of such behaviour we have seen, unfortunately, in human tragedies in our cities across Europe. And so to conclude, I'd like to extend a huge gratitude, firstly, to Senator David Norris for all of the work that you've put in over many, many, many years, creating an equal society, especially for gay people, but for all Dubliners. I joked earlier with Senator Norris, himself and Joe Duffy are like the sword and mace that prop up the Lord Morality, and I look forward, Senator Norris, for working with you for the rest of the year, and I look forward to working with the gay community in a broader sense. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Lord Mayor. So, as we heard, while we stand here today with pride flags and colours in full display openly on the street, the late 1970s and early 1980s in Ireland was a very different time. And it is down to those who stood up, gathered together, and had the courage and strength to be visible and to pave the way for others in this country and city, when the majority of homosexual people would have emigrated. Those brave gay rights activists stayed to build a safe gay nest at home and to provide support and a welcoming home for others to come out in. The Hirschfield Centre, which included a cinema, a nightclub called Flickers, a cafe, also witnessed in 1979 the establishment of the National Gay Federation, seen a gay helpline and gay parent support group develop, and birthed the total change and revolution of Temple Bar, not to mention its ripple effects that seen major change in gay, civil and women's rights. Of those joints whose footsteps we walk in, it could not have been possible without the next gentleman I introduce. The funds to open this centre was financed entirely by him. He was, and still is, one of the most visible and vocal activists for gay and civil rights. And it's my privilege and honour to welcome Senator David Norris now to speak and unveil the plaque in the 40th anniversary of the Hirschfield Centre opening. Senator Norris.
A gwini used in Ardware, it's a gwini used in Carja Galer, to Ohos Mura and Vehemas liver and Ocoil, honest Bashilda, honest Tovotaksha, Sestroid, Founds. I'm delighted to be here with you. I struggled for 10 years to get Dublin City Council to put this plaque up. It would never have happened without Declan Hayden. He is just fantastic. He has worked so hard to make this come around. After the Civil War and the Irish gay rights movement, which I was also involved in founding, I went off and founded the Campaign for Homosexual Law Reform, which consisted of half a drawer in my filing cabinet in Trinity, 5 other people, and some headed notepaper, where I persuaded the late Dr. Noel Brown, Victor Griffin, Dean of St. Patrick's, Hugh Leonard, and so on, to add their names, for which we were denounced in the newspapers as being an international conspiracy funded by Jewish money from New York. It was wonderful. We felt marvelous. We had arrived. We were an international conspiracy. It was fantastic. But people also wanted a disco because the gay rights movement, which was terribly worthy and marvelous, they actually lost the disco within 6 months of getting rid of me. And so people wanted a disco, and they came clamoring. I trudged around Dublin for 6 months looking for someplace, and I eventually found here. And it turned out, luckily, that my neighbour, John Cook in Greystones, owned it. So I laid siege to it with bottles of Madeira from the Trinity Common Room, and eventually got it. And as Declan said, I did put up the money. I put up 12, 15 grand. They had a lot of money in 1978. Nobody else put in a single farthing, with the exception of a great friend of mine who died tragically last year, the late Pat Landers, who borrowed €1,000 and gave it to me to put. I paid all the repayments, but he did borrow that money, and that was very good. Yes, on the opening night, I'll never forget it, St. Patrick's night, and we thought about maybe 70, 80, 100 people would come. About 300 people bulged in through the door, and although we restored the building, there was deflection on the floorboards, and I was advised that there could be a collapse. So I took the microphone and I said, we're closing down. You can get your money back, or you can leave it with us, or you can stay and have a cup of coffee. And there was booing and shouting, but some fellow stood up and said, come on now. I mean, at least there's somebody who gives a shit about us. Because it was their welfare I was concerned with. We closed for a couple of weeks, we restored, we put in stanchions to keep the place going, and so on. And on that first night, about half a dozen people came back to my house in North Great Georgia Street, and among them was the late Declan Flynn. And I remember him particularly because of the tragic and awful way in which he died. And a judge let the murderers away with nothing. And that created a scandal, and that was one of the first great marches of Dublin people, and by no means all of them were gay. There were mothers with small children, there were grandfathers. It was a fantastic outpouring in the interests of justice. We had all the things that Declan mentioned: a restaurant, a disco, a cinema, a theatre, and so many different things. Women-only discos, and I'm thrilled to bits to see Joni Crone here. Where's Joni? Oh, Joni was one of our heroes. And we have Brian Murray. We have Edmund Lynch as well. And I'm sure lots of other people were there in the very early... In the very early days. Exactly, darling. The other thing is, there was an earlier plaque just at Hirschfeld Centre, and it was unveiled by one of the great friends of the gay community, the late Dr. Noel Brown, who so courageously raised the issue of homosexuality in Dáil Éireann and was roundly mocked for his purposes. We got no funding whatever, because every other group in this area got funding. We didn't, because we were told it might be encouraging criminal behaviour. We got young people came in. We did environmental discos, women's discos, and so on. A lot of young people came in. They saw the potentiality, and as the Lord Mayor has said, this lifted this area. They bought little shops, they took leases on shops, they opened clothes shops, they opened postcard shops, souvenir shops, and so on. So this was the start of the Temple Bar revival. I remember there used to be queues here And I remember one in particular. I just remembered it coming down the street. There was a drag queen with an enormous hairdo, and the fella behind him tapped him on the shoulder and said, "Excuse me, did you get planning permission for that hair?" So there was an awful lot of good humour and fun. But there were also attempts to burn it down, which were eventually successful. There was a bomb on the roof, which I defused. So it was full of excitement in those days. Some of the excitement I didn't quite understand because I didn't know the music. I loved jazz and I loved classical music, but I knew fuck all about pop music. And I was the one who stopped Elton John and asked him for his membership card before I let him in. And I did the same thing to Freddie Mercury. I mean, how's that? I didn't know who the hell they were, either of them. Anyway, when this place burnt, I walked around again to try desperately to find something. I couldn't. And another group also tried to, and I said to them, you can have all my shares, you can have everything, you can have the Hirschfeld Centre, but you have to excuse me from my loans, and you have to excuse me from the fact that my house was put up as collateral. And they thought about it and they said, no. So then bricks began to fall out of it. We were advised it had to be sold, and so, sadly, it was sold. But the spirit of the Hirschfeld Centre continues. I am thrilled and honoured that Declan was able to produce a situation where the first citizen of Dublin comes here, unveils the plaque. I'd like also to thank Eddie McGuinness, who is the soul and heart of Pride, and all of you for coming here today. We had great fun. Let the fun continue. Let us all have a bloody good gay time. Going right for anybody, I'm a lefty.
Right, let's go. 1, 2, countdown, ready? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Yay! It's down there. Move over, treated. Hang on there, Derek. Just go beside that now there.
And Joni's going to say a few words, like.
So while we're waiting, I'm just going to invite Joni Crone. Joni, you might come up and say a few words first as well. I know you were incredibly important to the lesbian movement.
Come in here.
Yes, yes, absolutely. Guys, just looking down here for a second. That's beautiful. Looking down.
Can't celebrate equality with 3 men in the picture. No!
Right, so ladies and gentlemen, Joni Crone.
Hello everybody. Can you hear me out there? Hiya Majella. Hiya Sandra. Hiya Marina. Hiya Pauline. I came through these doors because David Norris rang me up in '79 and said, will you bring the women in? So I did. And I went through it as a proud, open, lesbian feminist woman in Dublin. And I stand here today as an even more proud lesbian feminist. Unreconstructed, unashamed. In '79, we were considered, even though we weren't illegal, lesbians were still treated as if we were. So we were illegal, we were immoral, we were abnormal, we were sinful. And today I still say we're abnormal, and I'm proud to be abnormal. Who wants to be normal in this world? But I would like to recall and to give credit to, there's a lot of women out here, and I can't name all of them, but we had a Thursday night was just for lesbian women because there were so few of us to start with. And as David said, we had the cafe, with the disco. Hiya Sandra, doing DJ. We had the phone line, lesbian line started here. And when I went on the Late Late, that was my reason for going on, was to publicise the phone line. And it took years for us to build up a presence and to build up a movement that we have now, thankfully. So because we were so isolated, because we were illegal, because we were so shunned and we were taboo, we needed each other. We needed that gay solidarity. And we as lesbians also had, all our energies were divided because we were working in the women's movement. We were out on the streets. A friend of mine said, rent a crowd every weekend, like. Do you know, so we were campaigning for abortion rights. We were campaigning for women's equal rights in work and so on. So we were professional activists, if you like. There was never a day went by without us being out on some cause or other. But we had to pull together here in the Hirschfeld, and I do say thank you to David and Bernard and Edmund and where is he? Brian, because you know you needed a small group to really make things happen, and they did start it off. They did make it happen. We joined in and we continued making it happen for lesbians. So I'm sorry that lesbian isn't on the plaque, because we fought for about 5 years to go from National Gay Federation to National Lesbian and Gay Federation, but there you go. Sure, life goes on. That's our history. We'll have to write it, women. Do you know, we'll have to write our own history, because otherwise we'll be written out again. But I'm very proud to be here today, and I thank David, as I say, and all the women who are here as well. It's a great achievement, and it's great to look back and to see the changes in Dublin, which is unbelievable. We had our first disco where we contacted everybody we knew, and we had 61. And the women came in the door and said, I never knew there were so many lesbians in Ireland. And we went from strength to strength. So thank you to Alva and to all the activists and Annie who have continued on the work. And long may we fly the rainbow flag. Okay. Thank you.
50 years ago next week, the movement of Pride was ignited in New York. Let's ignite the streets next Saturday with the biggest people parade. And today, with the unveiling of this plaque, we unveil Dublin Pride 2019. And we welcome you all to Dublin. Dublin is one city and one city for all. And we want to say on behalf of Dublin LGBTQ+, we're all inclusive, we're all part of the community and one family. Thank you very much, everyone. Now, the George is open for some drinks and champagne and stuff like that, and we'll see you over in the George.